Welcome to the first episode of Rules and Ramblings for 2025. My name is Nomad, his name is Maxen,
Hello.
and this time is a period of reflection for most people where they look back on their flaws and things they want to change about themselves and strive to do better the next year. However, me and Maxon are pretty much perfect. So instead, we decided to look back at our many years playing tabletop RPGs and look back on some of the problem players we have encountered. We will talk about them, some of those behaviors, how they impacted the game, and if you find any of these behaviors being expressed in your campaigns, how you can deal with them. Problem players come in a lot of shapes and sizes, and some are worse than others. Probably the worst one, hands down, is the cheater. Now, cheating seems inherently antithetical for a D&D campaign or whatever system you're playing, but
Some people just want to win.
if people can perceive of a way to win, then they'll cheat. Now, luckily, cheating is normally it's hard to cheat a lot. It's easy to cheat a little, in
Yeah.
the sense that you can cheat a little where you don't really affect much, but you can give yourself the slightest edge. Whereas big cheats that give you big advantages are
Super obvious.
a lot harder to hide. However, they have happened, which means that you specifically, need to stay vigilant. Probably the most common way that people cheat is fudging rolls. Fudging rolls is simply the act of rolling a dice and then lying about what the number is. Some of the ways fudging rolls happens is a player will roll a dice and then instantly pick it up and say the result before anyone can see it. Because, I mean, you can't prove it wasn't a 12 or a 13 or a 15, but you just have his word for it. Why would he lie to you, you know? Sometimes they'll roll it in a place where no one can see it and then say, this one's a lot sneakier because this one can just be not really thinking about it. But it's important to keep an eye out if you see this happening. You don't have to call them out on it, but it's worth.
Keeping track of the numbers they're rolling. If they never roll below like a 15, they're probably cheating. Even if they never,
I would say more like below an 11
I would say
or
even if they
12.
never roll below 11 or 12, they're also probably cheating. They might just be lucky, but it might just be something to look at. And if they're suspected, there's several ways you can fix that.
Now, the other way people tend to fudge rolls is a lot more devious because it actively requires the DM to act on it, or I guess one of the players. But the DM is the law of the land essentially, so it normally falls on them to call it out. It is if when a player rolls a dice over and over again for no real reason, but then if they get a result they like, they will say, I am doing this and I rolled this to do it. Normally that preys upon a DM's inability to say no or unwillingness to create any sort of conflict, so they'll just let it go. However, if you see this, absolutely make it very clear you have to declare your action before you roll the dice.
Yeah, doing that in general is just a great way to avoid that form of fudging your rolls. Or you could just institute a rule at the start of your game in Session Zero. You must declare an action before you roll a dice. If you roll a dice beforehand, I'm not going to care what it is. I don't care if you got a 20 or a 1, it doesn't matter.
Now, there can be exceptions to this. One that I see as a homebrew rule a lot is when a player rolls the hits, they roll the damage at the same time. So then it saves time because, like, all right, roll all of it and you roll like 15 on the d20 and 4 on the damage dice. And you're like, does a 15 hit? Yes. Okay, I did 4 damage or plus whatever.
Yeah, but that's
But
different than rolling your d20,
yeah.
which decides if you even hit or not, and then being like, yeah, I attack him after you rolled it.
So obviously, the natural way to fix this is just make sure everyone rolls the dice where everyone can see it.
Yeah.
If you're a player, I would try to keep an eye on your fellow players to see if you can see their results you can verify. If you're the DM, I would ask your players to do that.
Yeah. And if you're playing online, there's plenty of tools you can use to make sure that you can see people's rolls if you don't think you can trust them to
Oh
roll them
yeah,
themselves.
if you're on like D&D Beyond or Roll20, those have built-in digital dice
Yeah.
rollers, which I would argue you should be using anyways. If you're letting your players roll like behind their screen or at home where you can't see it, you kind of only have yourself to blame.
Yeah. The only real issue with that is D20 does actually have a workaround that people have figured out where you can fudge the dice. I don't know how to do it, but there's a way to just roll the dice until you get what you want, and then it sends that result.
That's interesting. I never heard of that. I haven't heard of that.
It's a few years old. They might have patched it by now, but it was a
Hopefully.
thing that people were doing.
Hmm.
I've never heard of D&D Beyond having that issue, so there is that at least. But yeah, it has been several years since I heard about that happening, so Roll20 may well have fixed it,
So
but I don't know.
a slightly more devious method of cheating is by altering your character sheet itself. This is really easy to do if you're playing in person, or I guess even digitally, because I'm pretty sure most digital character sheets where you can share with other people don't have any sort of
They don't have like an audit log where you can see
log.
what was
Yeah.
changed and when.
Um, this one can also be very easily be seen or presented as
An
just a
accident.
mistake.
Yeah.
For example, like you know, when you guys are counting and adding gold, like you get this gold, you get this, you get this. Adding just a couple hundred more gold than they reasonably should.
Oh, so I'm
Um,
sorry. I put a zero, an extra zero on accident. I'll fix it.
at
But
20, I think I could have sworn you said 200.
yeah, but it's something simple that can go unnoticed for a while, and maybe it just doesn't get brought up, and now they suddenly have a bunch more gold.
Yeah, another way that they can cheat by altering their character sheet is by adding gear they shouldn't have. Now, this isn't necessarily adding magic items because that's really easy to
Very
catch on,
obvious.
unless you're playing a very high magic campaign in which people are getting +1 daggers at the wazoo. Oh, DM, you gave me a +2 sword. You don't remember?
Yeah,
That's pretty
that's
easy.
that's an easier bluff to pull, but if it's a low magic setting, they're not going to go for any magic items. The most they might go for is like a low end potion, but they'll probably fudge like ammo.
So fortunately, we haven't run into the case of someone fudging rolls, at least not that we could prove. And as far as we know, no one has been adding giving themselves extra gold coins. However, I have had an instance where I had a player. He was like a friend that I kind of fell out with, but I invited him to the camp to a campaign. He played a Furbolg whose whole backstory was that he made a suit of armor. He had a vision and he made a suit of armor, and then one day his dad put it on, and then it was actually an evil suit of armor that his character didn't know about, and it sent his dad to the nine hells. This isn't a critique of his character's backstory, because you should make what you like. However, the reason I mention this is because my when I had read it, my intention or my takeaway was okay. The suit of armor went to the nine hells with him. It wasn't until a few sessions later where I think Maxon actually brought it up to me. You said you're like, hey, he has like 20, 21 AC. Keep in mind this was at
We were like level
third like
4.
level yeah third or fourth level, and he was playing a
Purple
cleric,
cleric. Yeah.
and they hadn't had the chance to buy like higher level armor.
And he had only joined the campaign like a session or two beforehand, so it was something that he would have had to start with.
I look at it and I said, "Hey, where did you get this from?" And he goes, "Oh, from my backstory." So, like, it's not my place to make fun of people's backstories, but just logically speaking, he was trying to tell me that his character was manipulated into creating a evil or a cursed set of armor that transported the person who wore it to the nine hells, The armor didn't go with, it stayed behind, and he decided to wear it.
Yeah. It makes no sense for the character and just seemed like a way that he thought would work for him getting a very good piece of gear very early on.
So I got a little annoyed, but I was like, okay, it was literally like 1 or 2 sessions. It wasn't that big of a deal. So I just said, like, I'm not gonna make a thing out of this. You just put on the starter armor for cleric. I think it's like half mail.
I think it is like
I'm
half
like,
mil.
just put on the half mail, change your AC. Like, we'll forget about this, and we won't worry too much about it. And he did. That was.
The last real way that a player can go about, or last main way a player can go about cheating is if they employ homebrew. And this is almost entirely the DM's fault if they don't check the homebrew that's presented to them.
It's very reliant on a late, not, I don't want to say lazy because that's not fair, a lax or otherwise busy DM who doesn't have the time to look through every like homebrew presented to them. Now, I would argue that if you're too busy or don't have the time to look through every
Don't allow
homebrew,
homebrew
yeah,
or limit what can be brought.
just don't allow them to use it, like simple as.
But yeah, we've actually both run into a thing like this when we were playing in another friend of ours that we also fell out with, or we just kind of stopped talking to him. Um, we were playing in his campaign. The campaign started out fine, and all of us were playing just normal characters or normal enough. One guy was playing a what are they called? Grell, the little
Yeah, I
frogs.
think so.
And he was kind of being like really like picky about how his traits actually worked and stuff, and was like already kind of prodding and stuff. And our DM at the time kind of just didn't know how to say no to him. But
I think it was less saying no and more he was one of those DMs that just rolls with anything, and that sounds like a positive, but it was like if you would say something as a joke, he would take it and run with it, even when the players didn't really want that.
yeah,
It was just, does this sound funny, regardless of how it affects the players?
yeah. But it eventually got to the point where few sessions in, we're all having a good time, and then the player's Grell character just goes away. No real explanation. He's just gone now.
Yeah, that's
And
whatever though. I don't.
well, yeah, but it's just like, but he did it just so that he could bring in this super overpowered homebrew of, a Witcher race with a Witcher class that gave him like a bunch of gear to start with and a bunch of like extra stats and stuff. And suddenly now we're all playing backseat to this fucking guy.
Yeah, so to kind of explain it, it was a homebrew that was a race and class based around the Witchers, and it was incredibly front loaded. Because we said this straight up to the DM, like dude, like this is way too overpowered. He shouldn't be allowed to have this.
Yeah.
The DM defended it by saying that, well, everything is front loaded, so he gets super OP at the start, but then he doesn't really get anything in later levels, so that in a few levels or at a certain point, you guys will actually be stronger than him. I'm like, okay, but we're like level 2 or 3. I don't want to sit around until level 6 or 7
And
to maybe be stronger than this guy.
yeah,
Keep in mind, I'm playing a Kensei monk. I'm already at a bit of a disadvantage because it's not the best subclass for monk.
yeah, and I'm playing a Valor Bard dwarf, so I'm both slow and I'm taking it as like a support, like backup tank. And now I've got to also like play second fiddle to this guy who's decided he's the main character. And the problem was after he did this, and we couldn't really fight him on anything because he was so front loaded and stronger than us. He started kind of pulling our group around however he wanted to.
Yeah, I don't remember everything, but what I do remember is the class starts with a steel sword and a silver sword because that's what the
Yeah,
witches
and the
have.
Silver Sword
Y-
started with like
The
some insane bonus against monsters.
it was a I don't remember if it was a damage bonus, but the steel sword gave him advantage against like humanoids.
Yeah.
and the silver sword gave him advantage against anything that was like a monster. So it was permanent advantage on every single melee attack
against anything.
at level 3.
Yeah. The silver sword also had like a plus something to
It
damage. I
was
don't think the
something
steel did.
stupid. And then there was like with the a mechanic for the elixirs
Yeah.
that further boosted him, but it was like, dude, come on.
And keep in mind, for the elixirs, they're the few that he did get to use. He didn't have to go and like, source any materials to like actively like do any like alchemy checks and make them. No, he didn't have to do any of that. He just had them, just continuously.
So
He could take them whenever he wanted.
so our advice for dealing with these kinds of players doesn't really apply to DMs, because if you let this happen, you kind of like, in the nicest way possible, you kind of deserve whatever comes your way.
Yeah, it's your fault for
But
letting this happen.
as your player, this could be really hard, because this is one of those cases that requires explicit, like, you know,
You got to get the DM
um
on your side.
getting the DM on your side. You have to like be at odds with them, basically
Yeah,
saying this is not fun, this isn't fair, like this should not be allowed. And that can be kind of hard depending on your friend group. See, we were lucky in this because the guy that was DMing, we knew him through other people, so he was a vicarious online friend, and then we didn't know any of the other people playing with.
yeah,
So when we brought it up to him and said, like, dude, this just isn't fair, it's not fun, and he's like brushed it off. All right, we just stopped playing.
yeah.
And that's kind of what you got to do, is you have to decide, okay, well, do you want
Is it
this
worth it?
guy, do you want to basically play second fiddle to this guy, or do you want to have fun? Because if you want to have fun and the DM isn't with you, you kind of just gotta pack your bags and go. Now, if you just don't care and you're just there for the people, then you do you. But
Yeah.
I like to I like to have if I'm playing a game, I like to play the game.
Yeah, I like to have a hand in the game, and I like to be able to, like help make decisions with the group and just help decide what we're doing instead of just being pulled around by this guy that if we die or try to fight against him, he'll just kill all of us real fast.
This is kind of unrelated, but I feel like I need to say this now. I hate when you meet up with friends to like do something or play a game, and people are more interested in just talking instead of playing the game.
Yeah, because
Like, luckily, I think you, me, and the rest of our friend group are pretty good about, like, if we're playing a game or something, we play the game.
yeah, we've figured out ourselves to the point that we can, we're there for a purpose. We can go and do it instead of
Right,
sitting
right.
around
Well,
for half an hour in the middle of it, losing time.
because if you're playing a board game and people like no one's paying attention to the game, they're too busy talking. I know the argument is, oh well, I'm here, to hang out with friends. I'm not here to play the game, and I get that, but
We
you
specifically
don't
set this
have
up to play the game.
you don't have to disguise socializing as a game.
Yeah.
You can just talk to people.
Yeah. We
Like,
could
if
just
you're
make
going,
plans to hang out, but this is a
don't
game
invite
day.
me to play a game, any sort of game, if we're just if it's under the pretense of just talking. You can just invite me to talk.
Yeah. You don't need to
But
ambush me with that.
I digress. That's just a personal thing, not super related to this. But that's a good segue. So the people with these types who try to sneak in these homebrews, they're trying to get an advantage, and just cheaters as a whole, if we're being honest, tend to exhibit traits of our next problem player, the main character syndrome.
It kind of just they've instituted that they're the main character of this story. They don't care what anyone else says, and generally they try to power game at least a little bit to try to make their characters stronger than other people so that they can push them around. It
I think it's worth
is a
saying
problem.
that I think people with the main character syndrome in like D&D, I don't think most of them see themselves as the main character. And again, this is one of those cases where this could just be someone not, how to say this,
Understanding that it's a team game.
sort of, but I think it's more wanting to insert, like, wanting to be a part of the story, but not really thinking about how the more that they're in the story, the less that other people are in the story.
Yeah, that's one of the main traits and problems of it is they like their character doing the cool stuff and they give not even half a shit about anyone else doing anything else.
And I think it's a problem I think most people can
If
like
you
solve
talk
in
to them
some
about it,
way.
they can overcome it. Most of them, but some people
I
just
think I
can't
think
get it through their head.
I think most people suffer for like trying to this balance of being involved or letting other people take the reins
Yeah,
to some degree. Like in Maxon's campaign that I play in, I kind of have to like figure out, okay, well, does my character have a reason to be getting it, like to be getting
involved in a
involved in what's
conversation.
getting discussed?
Yeah,
So I tried to like sit back with that because I play an artificer. So when I instead I try to wait for whenever the conversation turns to magic or there's some sort of thing involving spells or artifacts or anything, because then I try to jump in and take the reins.
yeah. And in Nomad's campaign, I play a sorcerer, so I'm naturally high charisma, so I kind of float towards being the face of the group, but I also try to sit back a little bit and let other people talk because I don't want to just be the only one speaking. I don't want to be
Yeah,
the
and
only one having to talk to anyone. And luckily, there's other people in the group that have been or become a little bit more comfortable as we've played with role playing, so I don't have to do everything.
and I think it's important to say that there's not a problem with like a face of the group. If you have the guy who's just the charismatic one, it makes sense to have him lead the discussions with NPCs. I mean more in the sense of the main character doesn't really value the other player's input into what to do,
Yeah,
and it's their way or the highway, as it were.
yeah. D&D is a collaborative group game. You are a team of adventurers going out to thwart evil, or maybe cause evil, depending on your campaign. But if one person's making all the decisions for the whole group all the time, something's a problem. Be it them or maybe just the rest of the group just doesn't feel comfortable enough to talk. But these are all things that can be discussed and usually gotten through.
So I would argue that everything we've talked about so far mostly impacts the playing of the game itself. Our next, like as far as like game mechanics, the MC is kind of the in between
Yeah,
to our next two sections, which kind of are a bit of a Venn diagram with a lot of overlap, where they mostly impact the players. Our first one is really common in a lot of RPG horror stories. It is the pervert, as it were, which we'll try not to say the other word to describe them.
yeah. The pervert can be an issue because they can, try to go after every NPC they come across or even try to go after other players. That's where the main issue comes in.
Yeah, and mostly because at the if a person or themselves or the character they're playing is meant to be a huge pervert or for lack of a better word, sex fiends. At best, it's disruptive to the flow of the game because they have to flirt with every NPC they come across. At the worst of times, they're flirting with other players, and if that player isn't okay with it, they can become extremely uncomfortable. Or the DM, because let's be real, not every DM wants to roleplay flirting.
Yeah. And there's some people that are this way that take it so far as when they, or when the DM lets them have one and lets them, have a fade to black with a character, then they try to play it out.
Oh, that's the
That
worst.
is
When they try to
absolutely
play
the
it out.
worst. It is so uncomfortable for most people. Like, it's not something you're there to do. You're a group of friends trying to have fun slaying monsters and stuff, or going through spooky areas, trying to solve mysteries. You're not there to listen to this one guy and the DM talk about having whatever for 20 minutes because the guy just won't let it drop.
Yeah, and I know I said that the worst was them flirting with another party member without their consent, but
That's not
realistically,
the worst. Yeah.
there's one thing worse than that. But I see that as more of a DM thing that happens that the DM does, as opposed to the players doing it, or rather, in the sense that the DM lets it
Yeah,
happen.
the
We will
DM can
talk
fully
about that
stop
here
it.
because it's not a fun topic, and I think it'd be better saved for if we ever talk about problem DM behaviors. But
We can
you
basically
know,
just call it
just
players losing agency of their characters.
yeah, that's
The best
the
way
good
we can
way to describe
describe it.
it. Just remember, no means no, consent's super important. If you do want to flirt with another player, if everyone's okay with it, then I mean, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, like just because you're in some overarching story and your characters are spending a lot of time together doesn't mean a romance needs to sprout.
Okay, but here's something I just
Something
thought of.
that needs to be talked about first. What?
Here's something I just thought of. I want to hear your thoughts directly, Maxent, and I would appreciate it greatly if anyone listening could also give me their opinions. So I'm really curious about this. How do you feel about two players who want to pursue a romance that involves flirting with each other, or at most, at the worst, sexually implicit things? They have the two of them are okay with it. They have the DM's approval, but the other players don't like it.
I feel like it's the kind of thing that the other players maybe just had to get over a little bit. It depends on how far the two players are going with it. Because
Just flirting and like oh, I don't know, like something you would see in like episode Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
yeah, if it's not being, or if they're not doing it to the point that it's disruptive to the overall flow of the story and the campaign, if it's just in like little side moments where their characters happen to be like up at or up having watch together while everyone else is asleep at the camp, that's fine. But like if they're like stopping like mid battle to flirt with each other or kiss or whatever, or they're like breaking up as someone else's scene to fucking do this shit, that's not okay. And maybe talk about or talk with the other players and see why they're uncomfortable with it. Because
Yeah, that's one of those things that you might want to like set at the beginning of the session zero. Like, okay, here's how we feel about
set a
romance.
precedent. It's something that can be worked around with, or you can talk to the players and see why they're not okay with it. But I feel like even if some of the people at the table aren't willing or don't like the romance, they can always just leave the room when it's happening if they don't like it. It's not something for everyone, but if people are agreed on it, then they can have their scenes. As long as it's not forced in a way where you have to sit there and listen to it, or it's while everyone's doing something together and this stuff's happening, I don't really see an issue with it.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see how other people think about this. So
Yeah, it's
I
kind
would,
of a hot topic. Some people
I
feel
don't know how
differently about it.
hot, but
Oh yeah.
I would genuinely speaking, I really want to know what other people have to say. So if you would kindly leave your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to follow us while you're at it. That's called self promotion. Um, so this player, this type of player, going back to the perverts, they tend to disrupt the game, the flow of the game as far as the narrative, and upset is a word to use. Upsets the players. They have a lot of overlap with our last problem player, the Saboteur.
This is someone who seems to actively work against the group succeeding, be it messing up NPC interactions through them just not letting other people do stuff, or uh, maybe instead of a combat encounter, or instead of you're in a combat encounter and you manage to talk the other people down, but this guy just won't stop and he keeps attacking who you just calmed down.
Yeah, think Murder Hobo.
Yeah, is very
Um,
common overlap with murder hobos and saboteurs, as is technically a subset.
yeah, it is not always super obvious like that. I think another example of someone I would consider a saboteur is like, the classic archetype of the rogue
Who steals from other
who
players? Yeah, I
that or
won't
doesn't want
tolerate
to join
it.
the party,
Yeah,
or
too
I
busy
sit in the
edging in the
corner
corner
cloaking.
to. Oh, that means
Yeah, I
something
sit in the
else now.
corner
Damn it.
bleeding.
Take the fuck out. Too
He
busy
sits in the
being an
corner
edge lord in the
edging.
corner to join the party and engage with the main storyline. He's like, "Oh, my backstory. Oh," and then he
No, no,
uses it as a it's what my player or character would do so that they can steal something else off of another player.
not now, GM. I'm too busy edging.
Damn
Don't, don't, yeah, don't piss me off. Demons come in me.
it. Yeah.
um, So I actually have a story about a couple of stories actually about saboteurs. Um, well, one was almost a saboteur, but I nipped that in the bud pretty quickly. Another one
Important to do.
I also nipped in the bud, but it was in the middle of a campaign, and Maxon actually doesn't know this one.
Hmm.
So I'll talk about the other one first that he does know about. So we had a player. He was another friend of ours that he played a lot with back in our 3.5 days. We went to school. We went to different high schools. We fell out. And then he had reached out to us, and we kind of started talking. And then we invited him to play in a new campaign. Oh, this actually would have been better in the homebrew section now, wouldn't it? Oh well, I'm not going to talk about it now. No, both of them would go in the homebrew. Shit. Whatever. I'm just gonna talk about it now because I thought about it. So this player, I think this is two different. I think this was two different like two different times this happened, like two different characters or campaigns. But it kind of begs the question of why the fuck we didn't just cut him out the first time. So the first time it happened was he wanted to play a cleric, but he was really dead set on wanting to basically play the medic from TF2.
Yeah.
I at this point I was kind of like really like making a character based on a character from a video game. Like, can we be a little more original here? Nothing against people who do that, especially if you're new to D&D. That's
Yeah,
how a
it's a
lot
good
of
start
people
point.
learn. But it's like we were fairly, a good few years into it at this point, him included.
Yeah. He'd played at least two, I think at least two of our campaigns prior.
He wanted to play. I actually don't even know if it was a cleric. It might have been like a ranger, but he wanted basically in TF2. There's like a gun you can give the medic that's a crossbow that I believe heals people when you shoot them.
Yeah.
So he wanted that, but he wanted to be able to put other things in it. Keep in mind at this point, this would have made a lot of sense for like an alchemist for artificer.
That
Artificer
wasn't out
wasn't.
yet.
I think we were playing 5e at this point. Artificer wasn't in the game.
I think the most recent book that had come out was like Xanathar's Guide, so this was like way
Yeah.
back.
So we were, and I was not interested in either finding or creating a homebrew for this guy's class.
Yeah.
So I kept fighting him on. I'm like, dude, like we're not doing this, and he kept pushing it, like, oh, well, if we do this, like that. I'm like, dude, we're not. Like, I don't want. I don't feel comfortable because I don't know how this can be abused.
Well, and to be fair, healing in 5e is already very strong. You can get people back up and then they can just keep fighting. There's not really a like downside to it. And being able to heal as an action every turn without it costing a spell would be nuts.
Right, because he wasn't playing a cleric who could cast healing word. He was playing a ranger, or so I
Who
think he
wanted a
was.
healing crossbow or something.
There was another time later where we were talking and we got to the part where I was helping him go through a character because it had been a while and he wasn't used to 5e. So that's why I think it might have been like at the same time. But we get to like the deity section. He's like, "What does this mean?" I'm like, "Well, there's like a pantheon of gods. Like here's like here's the page that lists them all." And he goes, "Can I worship God?" He was playing a cleric or a paladin, one of those two, mind you. So this mattered. I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Can I play God?" I'm like, "The God?" He goes, "Yeah." No. Well, why not?
It was a fantasy setting.
Because it's a fantasy setting with a pantheon. I'm not like because I'm not going to get into the
Instituting the Christian god in my fantasy world. I'm sorry.
more that I'm not getting into the consequences of all these minor gods and then the real
Big
ultimate
G
mega
god,
god,
yeah.
big capital G god. Of course, not a this isn't anything even resembling any sort of criticism of Christianity.
It's just a difference between
It's just there's a time and a place.
applying a monotheistic faith to a world where there are pantheons of gods, and the pantheons all are good at certain things. They have their own like domains, but in a monotheistic faith, it's the overgod. It's the big guy. He controls everything.
Yeah,
How is that going to react to, all the other gods that are around? He kind of just supersedes them all.
so the other time I've had to deal with a saboteur, and this is a lot. This is actually a saboteur. The other two were more homebrew related that I like cut really easily. This was actually a saboteur. This is the same guy from earlier who had the plate mail. There was a time in like his first or second session he joined us. Basically, I forget what the party had fought. I think they had fought like a bunch of oh god, it's like not the grells, but it's like a type of like bipedal frog people.
Oh, the little
Yeah,
toads.
I think so. I forget what they're called.
I remember. Yeah, I remember being there for that because I used Shatter to kill a ton
So
of them.
so it was like a camp full of them. They killed them all. There was a pit. All the treasure was in a pit. Which is basically like they were like eating these people, but they were taking everything they couldn't eat and throwing into a pit. So there's a bunch of golds. He messages, so like a couple of the party members jump in, they start like rummaging through. He messages me and goes, "Can I cast heat metal on the pile of coins?"
Hmm.
And I didn't even think about the like I didn't think about the exact wording because technically speaking, you can only heat one piece of metal. So it could be as big
Yeah.
as a solid piece of like plate mail or a single coin. It doesn't like affect an area. I didn't even think about how that wouldn't even work. I just straight up said no. I wasn't gonna read the fucking spell. No, you cannot do that. Are you kidding me? Luckily he didn't push it any further, but it's like again, imagine if somebody did that to a DM who has a lot of trouble saying no to people. They're not as assertive as they probably should be. Congratulations. You just fucking mains X amount of party members and possibly ended the campaign, or at least severely derailed it.
We were only like level 3 at that time too.
Yeah.
So heat metal would have killed us in like 2 turns
Yeah.
if it was the entire pile. I
If
didn't. Yeah.
if
For viewers'
I
information, I didn't know about this until literally now.
yeah,
That's how quickly the
because I think it was
issue was solved.
you and
I think me, the
the
paladin,
paladin. That's what it was. I was trying not
yeah,
to say his name. I was trying to remember what class he played.
yeah, the big, the tank and the big damage dealer, because I was a sorcerer as well. Both were in a pit.
Keep in mind, I'm pretty sure this was his Furbolg.
I think this was the Furbolg as well. This was like maybe 1 or 2 sessions before the whole plate mail thing. I don't think we'd even realized by this point.
So yeah, luckily at this point I had grown past my like how little fuck around find out DM stage where it's just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. And I had dealt with
The junior high
I
years.
had yeah, I had dealt with I don't want to say bullshit, but like, no bueno stuff before. So I was pretty much on top of that, like, hell no, you can go fuck yourself. I didn't say that to him, of
Yeah, that would have.
course.
To be fair, that would have been the kind of thing that would have made the entire table pretty pissed at
Oh,
him.
absolutely. I would have known that. And I mean, I would not have stopped you
Yeah,
guys from killing him. I almost thought about letting him do it so that you guys would kill him.
I did almost kill him. To be fair, like 3 sessions later,
I do
but that was
remember
because my
that.
character was freaking
That
out
was that
because
was kind of
something
funny.
happened that wasn't meant to happen.
Yeah, that was kind of funny though, but
The funny thing is, though, he did try to fight me on it, and then I just overpowered him.
mhm.
He was all full of himself too, because I think that was like the session that, or we later just, no, I think it was because of that fight, because it was one of the few times that we've had PvP in one of your games, um, because my character was freaking out, and his character was being an ass, and what you call it? I think it was because of that fight that I noticed that his AC was so high, which led to us finding out about him having the plate mail.
Yeah, now I think about it, technically I'm dealing with a problem player right now in our current campaign that I run. Because
Yeah, the little bird.
one of our friends, again, another old friend we used to play with back in these like, woohoo wacky fun days, is
Days of Woe or
playing a
Yore.
Cobalt, not Cobalt, Kenku,
Yeah, Kenku.
who doesn't fully get what this campaign's about. Luckily, for the most part, I think our current all our players are like pretty on the
Experienced.
ball. They know what we're about. They know like what the implicit expectations are. But he's still like he kind of pushes a little bit. But luckily,
He might have fucked us in the last
that
session,
is
to be
true. That
honest.
is true. But that
He
was also
fucked up a lot
funny.
of stuff.
That was also
It was
funny.
kind of funny, but he did kind of fuck us, and then he tried to steal from me like twice.
Yeah, but you guys will figure it out. You guys are smart.
To be fair, he did also used to do that shit before, but
But yeah, luckily now now I'm more experienced enough where I can figure out what will and will not be an actual problem. So I can decide what to allow more
Informedly.
logically, I guess.
Yes, I'm
More
educated.
educatedly.
Pushes glasses up.
That's a word. Push his glasses up.
Nerd about
Fluently. But oh god, you don't have any other stories of problem players that we haven't mentioned, do you?
uh, I mean, technically, there was that guy in that same campaign with the Witcher dude that was self-sabotaging to the point or that he had it was like -3 constitution, so he had like no health. That's technically sabotaging the party in a way because you're supposed to have a set amount of people for these what you call it, encounters. But if someone has specifically so underpowered themselves that they're basically useless and they go down in like a hit, they're kind of taking up a slot for a character that could actually be like helpful. It's not a super often thing, but some people do
Yeah, I
do
guess
it.
on that note, because it's kind of related before people mention it, we were actually originally going to talk about the power gamers, but
Yeah.
we decided not to because that's mostly a thing that happens like session zero, or I don't think it's. I guess I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem player. It's just more of
It's one of those things that is usually fine but can be
yeah,
problematic
because I like playing
if
characters.
let going too far. Like it's nice being strong and stuff, and it's good on a team if you have an experienced DM and an experienced team of players to have the people who enjoy the game for role playing, and then to have like the one or two people who build their character really well and are min-maxing, just in case a hard encounter gets thrown at you, so they can like kind of pull the weight a little bit more. It's nice to have them, but when it gets in the way of them like being bored because there's not fights happening and people are actually role playing, that's when it can be problematic. It's more of them just being bored. Most of them don't do it, but that's like the only real way that a power gamer can actually be an issue is if you let it be an issue with them not letting other people have their time, which kind of goes with the MC thing.
But that's about all of the types of problem players we can think of, at least on the top of our heads, ones that especially we have experience with. But I'm sure that there are tons of other behaviors out there that we haven't mentioned. So if there's any you've noticed or you've experienced that we didn't talk
Comment down
about,
below.
then comment down below next to the phone with the ramblings.
Happy shopping.
Hobby hopping.
Hobby hopping. It's Sweden.
So
Yeah, come back next time for when we do whatever we
yeah,
do. We haven't
hopefully,
decided yet.
we are trying to increase our frequency of uploads. So
But
that
we are,
is
yeah.
actually our New Year's resolution. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We almost fucked it up the first week,
We did almost mess it up this first month.
but so far we're going strong. So
Yeah.
until next time, my name is Nomad and his name is Maxen, and
Yeah.
we will see you next time.